Hello, hello, Apple Group. Welcome to your next sort. We are working on sort 6 this week, and I'm very excited for you to get started. Make sure you have your notebook, your new list of words, and your schedule back from me so that you are ready to go right away. Good luck. All right, so if you noticed on your sort, you are gonna have 4 headings this week, but I just wanted to start with 2. So the first one I wanna look at is a base word that ends in a T. Okay, for example, a base word that ends in a T is the word assert. Assert means to tell someone to do something or to make sure they do something. So my base word is assert and it ends in a T. So I would put that here under base T. My other heading I want to look at is base with the heading IC. So these are words that haven't been added to in the front, a prefix or a suffix at the end, and they end in the spelling IC. For example, magic. Okay, magic is my base word and it ends in an IC, so that is gonna go here. Now, what we're specifically working on this week is adding an ION or an AIN to the end of my base words. Now, hear me when I say this. There are no spelling changes this week to your base words. So you should not be changing these base words at all. If you spell these base words differently when you add the suffix, you did not spell them correctly. So when we have a base word that ends in a T, we add the suffix ION to it. So that's my next heading. When we have a base word that ends in an IC, we add an IAN to it, and that's my 4th heading. Now, when we add these headings, it does not change the spelling, but it does change the sound of the T and of the IC. So we know that in the word assert, you hear that T at the end, that T sound. When you add an ION to assert, it becomes the word assertion. Assertion. Our T sound changes. You don't hear a T anymore. Now you hear a sh. So we go from having a base ending in a T and a T sound to adding the ION, and now the T is making the sh sound. Assertion. The same sound change happens with words that have the base and end in an IC. For example, the word magic. When I add an IAN to the end of the word magic, for example, magician, my magic ends and changes to magician. So again, my IC changes to the same sound as the T changes, which is sh, magician. I'm gonna put this right here because that is gonna go in that category. When you're sorting this week, make sure you match up base word and changed word. Okay, I wanna see them right next to each other. So let's go through another example before we look at definitions. I have another word with a base word of T. My other word of my base word of T is the word digest. Digest means like inside of your body, it's like chewing up your food and it's processing your food so that you can eat it and so you can get the nutrients out of it. So when we add digest, listen to that T sound. When we add an ION to digest, our word becomes digestion. Okay? It changes the T sound again, digestion. Okay, so if I'm saying I am having some digestion problems, I'm having some issues with processing my food in my stomach. Another example of base that ends in an IC is the word optic. Optic means eyes. So anything to do with your sight or your eyeballs, that is what optic means. When we add the AIN to, or the IAN to optic, we get the word optician. Optic, optician. You see how that IC sound changed? An optician is the person, like a doctor, who handles your eyesight. So for me, I wear glasses and contacts, so I have to go see an optician every year to get my eyes checked. It's their job as doctors, that kind of doctor, to check and to deal with your eyes. So I want to do one more in this category before we talk about the definitions. I have a base word that ends in IC, music. Listen to that end sound. When I add IAN, it becomes musician. Okay, that IC sound has changed. Now, what do we notice about these 3 words? A magician, an optician, and a musician. All of those are people, right? There's something someone is doing. Okay? It's a person who does something. So when you add IAN to the end of the word, it makes it into a person who does something. Now, that is not the same definition as my suffix ION. So when I add ION to the end of a word, it doesn't change it into a person. It actually changes into something different. So when we have ION at the end of the word, it's changing it more into like an action. It's what you are actually doing. So assertion is I am making an assertion. I am telling you what to do. Digestion is the act of your body trying to break up the food. So the ION suffix is more of an action. The IAN suffix tells me a person who is doing this base word. All right, we have a lot more examples that we're going to go through so we can finish sorting your sort. So make sure, because there are probably words on this one you don't know, make sure you start a list so you can ask me later so we can learn some definitions. All right, my next word is adopt. It ends with a T, adopt. When I add an ION, it changes to adoption, adoption. Okay, that sound changes. Adopt is to like take a child who you didn't birth, but you want to keep, or you can also adopt a dog. You can take a dog that you obviously didn't have before, that you might have gotten from a store or something. That is what it means to adopt. My next one is logic. This ends in an IC, so it's going to go my base IC. I can add an IN, and then it's a logician. Logic, logician. Okay, it's someone who uses a lot of logic. It's that person who does that. All right, my next one is the word suggest. It ends with a T, suggest. I can change it into suggestion, 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 okay? I'm making a suggestion. So again, I'm changing that T to my T with an ION, my letter sound changes. My next word is insert. To insert is to like put something inside of something. When I add an ION, it becomes an assertion, okay? Insert, insertion, changes that sound. I also have the word invent, okay? Invent. Ends with my T. I change it an ION. It's an invention. Invention. Okay, if you notice that these actually, they don't all have the exact same sound when you add the ION, but they do all change the T. All right, next up, I have a clinic. A clinic is a place you can go like to the doctor. When I add IAN, it's a clinician. Clinic, clinician. Notice that sound change. Again, it's a person who works at the clinic. It's a person who does something. Last one, I have diagnostic. Ends with an IC. Diagnostic is when you look to find out like where something is at. Like yesterday we took our Lexia diagnostic assessment. We tried to see where you all were at, your level. When you add IAN, you have diagnostician. Okay? So diagnostic, diagnostician. You have that sound change. And this is a person who tests people to figure out where they are on whatever you're looking at, whether it's Lexia, whether it's sports, whatever. So here is your sort for this week. I want to see you, again, match up the words as they change next to each other when you are gluing it in. These words can typically be something that you use patterns to solve. You just need to remember that when they end in a T, you add an ION. When they end in an IC, you add an IAN. All right, so it's going to follow that spelling pattern this week. You're going to have a quiz in a little while. Good luck.